Good morning to India, good afternoon to Singapore, and greetings to the rest of the world joining us today. I'm Chuan Wee Meng, CEO of Singapore International Mediation Centre, your host today. Warm welcome to ISMS 2021, the inaugural India-Singapore Mediation Summit, making mediation mainstream, reflections from India and Singapore. We are very encouraged by a registration of almost 3,000 participants. I believe many others will be viewing and sharing this in the days to come. Thank you to each one of you for joining us on a Saturday, and special thanks to all our distinguished speakers and guests for gracing this summit. We are also grateful for the strong support from both the Indian and Singapore Supreme Courts, the Ministries of Law, NITI Aayog, and our event partners, without which this summit would not be possible. Thank you. In today's event, we will see unprecedented participation from the highest level of both countries to discuss an increasingly important mechanism to resolve disputes of our time, mediation. We are confident that today's conversations and strong friendships will lead the path to propel mediation further in the near future for both India and Singapore. We'd like to welcome our special guest to deliver his remarks, Mr. Edwin Tong SC, Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, and Second Minister for Law. Minister Tong, please.
Thank you, Wee Meng. Honorable Mr. Justice N.V. Ramana, Chief Justice of India, the Honorable Chief Justice Sundaresh Menon, Chief Justice of Singapore, honorable judges, distinguished guests, members of the Bar from India and Singapore and elsewhere, many guests online, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to all of you joining us from India, and a good afternoon to the rest of us in Singapore. Thank you very much for being with us. I'm delighted to be here today to give some opening remarks at the inaugural India-Singapore Mediation Summit, ISMS. In more usual times, we could perhaps be having this summit in India, and indeed that's what we had planned to do. We could be meeting in person, not just exchange views, but also catch up with old friends. Unfortunately, we are still battling COVID-19, and although the situation has improved since May, when we originally planned to hold this summit, the situation throughout, I must say, has been very fluid, and our organizers has had to be equally fluid. So let me start by expressing my appreciation to the organizers, SIMC, Camp Arbitration and Mediation Services, and Mediation Mantras, for adapting to the evolving situation so well, pressing on, and turning this into a virtual event, which has in turn lent to a very strong participation. More than 3,000 have signed up, and indeed I see very many familiar faces on my screen. I last visited India in August 2019, together with Minister Shanmugam, just after the Singapore Convention on Mediation signing ceremony and conference. During that trip, I met a number of judges, lawyers, in-house counsel, and of course, mediators. We had lots to discuss on not just the Singapore mediation and the convention, but also international dispute resolution in general. I recall the strong support amongst Indian businesses and practitioners for the use of mediation as a means to resolve cross-border disputes. The Singapore Convention as a means to enforce the mediated agreements that arise from mediation. As in many parts of Asia, mediation in India dates back many centuries. Respected village elders, known as panchayats, mediated in community disputes. The often quoted story was that of two women claiming to be the mother of a child, and how the panchayat identified the mother. I think many of you know this story. Business associations are often also called upon for impartial, neutral, and respected businessmen or mahajans to mediate commercial disputes between their members. So the use of mediation to resolve conflicts is certainly not unfamiliar to many. As Indian businesses and companies became more and more international and deal with business partners from around the world, it would be natural, perhaps even inevitable and necessary, to extend mediation to international commercial disputes. The economic activities in India are only going to increase. Today, India is the 6th biggest economy in the world. The Center for Economic Business Research projects that India will overtake the UK to become the 5th largest by 2025, and will also be in serious contention for the 3rd spot by 2030, so within a 10-year horizon. If you take a look at our two countries, Singapore and India, trade and investment between Singapore and India are also on the rise. Today, Singapore is the biggest contributor to FDI inflows into India from April 2020 to March 2021, a figure which has continued to grow even from the preceding pre-COVID period of 2019 to 2020. And Indian companies today form the largest overseas contingent that have invested in Singapore. There is therefore impetus for us to collaborate more closely on mediation for several reasons. It's a dispute resolution mechanism that has been historically practiced by both our societies. Both our economies, our judiciary are very comfortable with it. It's a known quantity. And more importantly, it is a means of resolving disputes in a manner which gives parties the best chance of maintaining what could very often be hard-won, long-standing commercial relationships. Our companies are very familiar with it, as I said, and many welcome it. It's generally faster, more cost-effective, and as I said, helps to preserve business relationships. It is especially imperative during this period when more disputes may arise to disruptions in supply chains and of course various other unanticipated restrictions. Businesses may also be on tighter budgets, many have been. The pandemic will pass someday, and they would want these business relations that they have maintained, built up over the years, to remain harmonious. In mediation, what's most vital is having a mediator who understands not just the disputes, but the parties, not just the industry they operate in, but also the cultural nuances, particularly for cross-border mediations, and the little details which often can be unarticulated. Therefore, when we set up SIMC in 2014, we insisted on having the best mediators from around the world, not just from Singapore. We are agnostic as to where they come from, as long as they can be the best in mediation. This is so that parties will be able to have access to first-class mediators who would be able to meet their requirements and their counterparts' requirements. Today, SIMC, I'm happy to say, has an international panel of over 70 mediators from 17 jurisdictions with expertise in a variety of areas, including 6 from India. This is also supplemented by specialist mediators from key jurisdictions. And I recall that when I was in India in August 2019, we empaneled 21 such specialist mediators from India. This will be further enhanced after SIMC and Camp Arbitration and Mediation Services sign an MOU to collaborate on a joint COVID-19 protocol. Under this protocol, which I think is really much needed, one co-mediator is selected from SIMC's panel of mediators and another co-mediator from CAMP's panel of mediators who are familiar with each country's different legal regimes and also different cultural context. The filing fee will be reduced as we recognize that businesses are already facing tremendous financial difficulty and pressure because of COVID-19. Mediation will be conducted online or perhaps in a hybrid form to overcome the current limitations on travel. SIMC has successfully managed the mediation of the first case under the joint COVID-19 protocol with the Japan International Mediation Center, JIMC. That case involved a complex, high-value dispute between an Indian entity and a Japanese entity over a joint venture agreement. The parties had commenced arbitration, but thankfully wanted to start and try mediation first. SIMC and JIMC each appointed a co-mediator who was familiar with Japan and India respectively, and they helped the parties to build strong cross-cultural understanding and also foster rapport, two ingredients which are really very important at the start of a mediation, and they did so with the center's end-to-end support. By the second day of mediation, the parties had agreed in principle to settle the dispute, and this took place within 7 weeks of the suspension of arbitration. Having the dispute to be resolved in a matter of weeks and in a non-contentious manner has undoubtedly saved a lot of time and resources, and of course I would hope preserve the commercial relationship as well. I'm very confident that a protocol between SIMC and CAMP will similarly benefit dispute resolution users in Singapore and India. Whilst getting a mediated settlement agreement is a good first step. There will always be a niggling worry, especially when you deal with a cross-border party, that the other party may not fulfill their part of the bargain. So what's important in the mediation is the assurance that any agreement that parties reached will be complied with. The Singapore Convention on Mediation, which facilitates the enforcement of mediated settlements of an international commercial dispute, offers this assurance. So far, 54 countries have signed the convention, and 6 countries have gone on to ratify the convention. India was one of the first countries to sign the convention, and we look forward to India's ratification soon. And we'll be happy to share Singapore's experience in this regard, if necessary. Singapore will also be organizing the Singapore Convention Week and the Answer Trial Academy events from the 6th to the 10th of September 2021, later this year, where thought leaders from around the world will share their expertise and experience on mediation and also other alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. I invite all of you to participate in the events, which will be streamed online. Before I end, let me thank once again SIMC, Camp Arbitration and Mediation Practice and Mediation Mantra, once again, for the tremendous effort for putting all of this together and for inviting me to this platform. I hope that one day we'll be able to travel again soon so that we can really catch up with old friends and also make new ones. I think we have 2 tremendous speakers coming up. I'm looking forward to listening to them, and I wish all of you a very fruitful summit ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I do recall the trip to India with much fondness, meeting up with leading mediators and practitioners in India. I'd like to thank all of our distinguished speakers and panelists for joining us in the inaugural India-Singapore Mediation Summit. Again, I'd like to thank NITI Aayog for coming on board as our partner, and to all our event partners in India, in Singapore, who extended their generous support to make this summit a reality. A big thank you to all of our participants for expressing your great enthusiasm and for joining us today. Till we meet again, take care and stay tuned for more updates on mediation. Thank you.